Hello again, security neighbors. This is Mr. Boettcher and Brian for Breaking Down Security.
Hello.
This week is we're going to break down another application that pen testers use, an automated tool that it's a little unique as far as proxy services or proxy programs go. We're going to look at Ratproxy this week.
Right. Ratproxy is sort of a passive scanner, mostly passive. It can be active if you set it that way, right?
Okay, well, before we go on, let's figure out and help our listeners understand what the difference is, what the difference between an active and a passive scanner are.
Okay, so a passive scanner is it only looks at the traffic. It's kind of like an IDS. It detects, but it doesn't act on anything. So that's what a passive scanner will do. It just looks.
It's the Kismet or the air crack of wireless for proxies. It'll just, it just hears, but it doesn't, actively do anything to the traffic, which is good if you're doing testing of applications and maybe you don't want the application to know that it's being, hacked on or.
Yeah, it's kind of like window shopping. You don't go through the door, you just look in the window.
Is that an apt analogy?
Let's just go with it.
Is that good? Okay, we'll go with it. All right. So, the good thing about Ratproxy, in addition to, how easy it is to use, because it doesn't come with a GUI, it only comes with a fancy command line, is that it runs in both Linux. There's a port for Mac, and you can also run it in Windows. And, you use active ones like Burp, or Windows has Fiddler as well, which we learned a little bit about in our Sec 542 class. I haven't used it a lot, but it's definitely fully featured. But for Ratproxy, you have to download Cygwin and install it. So you have to build it from source. We'll have a link. Mr. Johnson, back in 2012, I think, wrote a blog post about how to compile it for Windows. And if that's your thing and you want to run Ratproxy on Windows, that blog post was quite useful for us to.
Well, you may not have a choice because it could be you who's running Ratproxy, or it could be some other people in your organization. We'll talk about that in a bit. So it is a passive scanner, sort of like a man in the middle who has his hands tied, which is why proxy is in the name, right? So it's a proxy between your browser and the server.
Well, as a matter of fact, you can actually do a man in the middle. In the last few days, me and you, I know we've been playing around with Ratproxy quite a bit, and when you activate it and you go to an SSL website that wasn't, that you had gone to before, let's say Facebook or something, you'll get hey, this site doesn't look very reputable. And if you go look at the cookie, it'll actually say it's the Ratproxy MITM cookie, which MITM, for those in the security field know, is man in the middle. So it will actually create an SSL certificate for you and actually kind of masquerade as the website. So one thing we noticed with that was I had to disable certain protections in Firefox I'm sorry, we were using Kali. It's in Kali normally, but so Iceweasel, I had to disable certain security features so that Ratproxy would work for me, like not automatically forbidding non-trusted sites, using something called OSCP, which is like a safe browsing kind of function from Google that'll compare the SSL certs of sites to make sure that everything is all copacetic. Did you have to do anything special on your end, or were you using Kali as well?
I was using Kali as well, so I had to do that also.
Okay.
And I also used Samurai.
But once we did that, it was good. You were using Samurai? Was it different there? Do they use Firefox instead of Iceweasel? I didn't know if it was any different.
No, it was the same.
Other than the icons.
It was the same as Kali. So
okay.
So that's proxies, and there's a difference between this proxy and an interception proxy, but anyway, This proxy just sits there and looks at the traffic and sees if it can find anything that matches whatever signatures it's looking for, and then it'll log it and show you at the end. You can create a report and see all the findings that it believes that you should take a look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the interesting thing about, you mentioned intercepting proxies. Well, with like burp and those are kind of interception proxies. With this one, you can't really modify anything on the fly like you can with burp. You can go into burp, the interface, and go, oh, okay, I see this request coming in, or I see this request going out. I want to modify little things. With this, it's just like you're looking at a web app. You're going to click on every link on the website. You're going to try to log in. You're going to mess around with the SSL or the non-SSL, and then generate the report afterward. That's a lot of people may think that that's not a very useful tool, but if you don't want to have to deal with all the overhead of burp, and don't get me wrong, or Zap, or Fiddler, especially Fiddler, then this is a nice little program that works really well.
So unless you tell it otherwise, all it's going to do is watch the traffic going back and forth, looking for bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that you must browse the site normally. Okay, you're not going to plug in any other tools and try to attack it. You want to browse the site as a normal user would do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's perfect for QA.
Yeah, because you just start it up, and most QA or testers are going to be going through their same routine. They're going to be testing the web app. They're going to be doing what a normal user would do, which is exactly what Ratproxy. Yeah, exactly what they should be doing, and that's exactly how you would want to be testing with Ratproxy. You want under normal circumstances, under normal conditions, and you wouldn't want to enable the disruptive parts, because it can be an active scanner. There are certain switches that you can enable to allow it to actively attack with for CSRF or for cross-site scripting.
Yeah, so if it sees something interesting, then it'll try to attack it and sort of verify what it sees. Mm-hmm. To basically say, I thought I saw this and I attacked it, and sure enough, that's what it was.
Yep.
But the idea and what we're recommending is to set it up, get familiar with it, and then try to implement it in your QA testing. So it's passive. So all the QA person would have to do is, once they install it, they would kick it off, and then they would do their testing. So QA, test the site normally to make sure the functionality is all there. At the end of their testing, they would kill Ratproxy and then compile a report for you. And we're going to talk about the report a little bit as well, but they should probably send that report to you. Someone who knows what these vulnerabilities are and can verify also.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And at least for the Kali version, when we were using it, the man page is pretty much pretty much what you would find if you did a -H on the help. When you run the Ratproxy -H command for the help function, it gives you a list of things that you you may want to put up. And at the bottom, which I found interesting, was the guy who created it gave you 3 examples of what you would want. He mentioned verbosity. So you can do certain tests, like if you do a -L, you can use response length or checksums when checking for the identity of a website. Let me see, -F. I thought -F, and I think this is kind of unique among the proxies. It will actually decompile Flash objects if you have the external module that will decompile those for you. And I assume decompile is it takes your Flash movie or the Flash banner or whatever on the site, and it will kind of reverse engineer it or turn it back into its constituent action script parts
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look at it for, I don't know, vulnerabilities, if it's got malware in it, if it's got links that will send you somewhere else, that kind of thing. I
Yeah, I don't know much about that part. I haven't
Yeah,
gotten into Flash programming at all. But hey, if it decompiles Flash objects, that might be something you want to look at.
yep, yeah. Well, one thing that if you're going to do testing with a proxy in your browser, you don't want to have any plugins running. Now, on my normal box, I have things like cookie blockers, JavaScript blockers. I use request policy that blocks certain domains from even loading at all.
Sure.
If you're running a proxy of any kind, whether it be burp or Ratproxy in this case, you want nothing running that would cause your browser to not show the exact page, because most normal people are not going to be running plugins that are going to be, you want the
Safe.
full functionality. Yeah, that will make you safer. Most people will not be running things that will make you safer. Exactly. So,
So what about that report? What'd you think?
I like the little curly Q. Um, um, the icon is nice. What happens is when you're done running it, it gives you a log file, and you have to specify the log file location and the name of the file, and that's one of the, like, -w is the directory where you're going to store log files or the traces of the various pictures and such, and then V is the log file directory. So once you do that, you get like a wall of text that is not readable unless you use the custom shell script that will,
Come with
like,
it. Yeah.
that comes with it, that kind of makes everything look nice again. And it formats it. I don't know if it uses some kind of regex to make it pretty, but
Basically, it takes that output and turns it into a web page that you can
yeah,
look at, and
yeah,
that's your report. Um, it's it's definitely not for someone who doesn't know what these things are, like CSRF, cross-site scripting, everything.
hmm
It basically, well, it doesn't explain why or how it was found,
yeah,
but just that it was found, and it leaves it up to you, somebody in the know, to determine if it's true or a false positive,
yep,
right?
yeah. So we, just like in a cooking class, we have gone ahead before and actually did a scan on a couple of websites that we will not name or show because they may or may not belong to.
Some
So
test sites. We
test
did some
sites,
test
yeah,
sites. There you
test
go.
sites, yeah, yeah. So the urgency, the issue urgency, they break Ratproxy breaks it down from low to high, and then they show info for stuff that it says non-discriminatory entry for further analysis. I would assume that it's like, hey, this looks interesting. You might want to look at this, but we don't really know if it's a bad thing or not.
Sure.
That's what I'm getting from
And that's
that.
where you have to put some intelligence behind it, and you gotta go look at the site itself and determine, for yourself, if that's true or not. If it actually found what it thinks it found. Okay, and then you can use other tools to go and test it if you so choose, right?
Yep.
Try to
And
exploit it.
yep. And then they give you three options. They give you three different boxes down here called echo, pred, and auth. And the idea was that if you've got parameters in your URL and the response to whatever input you gave it is echoed back in some manner in the URL, you get that showing up in the URL. And then another one is the query data, may or may not be predictable. So it's like, if it can tell if it's predictable, it gives you like a capital PRED. But if it's not necessarily predictable, they'll give you like a lowercase PRED. And then,
It looks for things like directory traversal.
Yep.
And it can also find bad syntax in your HTML as well.
It does do that. Yeah, one of the ones that on the finding on our website here, some of these ones I've never actually heard of, like ambiguous HTTP content headers, and it explains that files with duplicate or contradictory headers or HTTP equivalent fields. So this test website we've got, has some duplicate or contradictory headers in the fields, and it says it may confuse browsers and produce unexpected content processing results.
Yeah, so it's just some things, it'll tell you some things that are striking, and then some things like that, and you may go to a developer and say, hey, what's up with this? Were you meaning to do this? Just look into it more. You can Google things, find out more information about it. It's just something that'll it's like a highlighter. It'll highlight some flaws that it believes are prevalent in your website, and allow you to go look further.
Yeah. Here's one that for some reason it's got Internet Explorer 6 as the vulnerability. It's called inline PNG images, and it says PNG images with no content disposition attachment header. In Internet Explorer 6, this may trigger content sniffing and potentially lead to cross-site scripting flaws if the image is user supplied. See, I'm gonna have, if you're not big in web application security like myself, I would end up having to go and do a lot of research on these, hopefully on the OWASP website, because we posted part 1 of Josh Sokol's interview a couple of weeks ago. I would have to go onto the OWASP site and find what all these things meant, or have to go do my research before I even went to the developer and go, oh hey, you've got inline PNG images.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, because he's going to be like, cool? Or
what's wrong with that?
Cool?
I don't know.
Awesome? Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go in and say, I don't know, to a developer, because then you lose all credibility.
Yeah.
So, but I do like the format of the report. It's very easy to read, and one of the things that we noticed when we were actually doing the scanning, because we thought that it wasn't working with the site, it doesn't appear to show output when you invoke Ratproxy. So the only way we knew that there was any output coming into Ratproxy, because we wanted to make sure that there was output, we had to tail the output log file, or whatever the file name is.
Right.
And once we did that, then we knew we were getting stuff. But it looked like it was broken at one point. So let me see. What else do we want to talk about with Ratproxy? Did you get to try any of the other cool stuff with it?
No, I was going to try and compile it on Windows, but I didn't have a chance this week.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. You can tell it to only detect anything on one site. That way, if you have links to another site, it won't clutter the report with these other websites.
Yeah. The -D thing I thought was really nice. You can tell it to look for certain things. That way, if you forget and you go, you're off checking Facebook or something, and you're supposed to be testing, you don't pick up on a cross-site scripting flaw in Facebook, and you're like, oh crap, now I got to report that or something.
Right.
So, I actually tried Saturday morning. When we were gonna do this, I was looking at, because I was like, oh well, if this thing will just take sites, and if you can spider a site through this thing, you should be able to do that. And I was like, well, I'll just get wget running and spider a website.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work. And
why is that?
It's the way that wget handles web requests for a site. Wget doesn't actually interact with the website. So even if I'm pretty sure you can do it with wget and actually spider a website with that, and using Ratproxy as a proxy in between. But the idea of Ratproxy is you want the user interaction. You want, especially if you've got logins or you've got other things like that. wget's not going to do that user interaction. So it's going to just basically scrape the website and store it. So it's just looking for files specifically. It's not going to load the entire HTML. So if there's any dynamic content in the HTML site, that may get skipped, which would be very important if it's, say, PHP, or basically 99% of other internets out there that have sites on them with dynamic content. If you're going to pull WordPress.php, you're just going to get WordPress.php. You're not going to get the fact that there's web vulnerabilities in your WordPress application by using wget. So if you're thinking about trying to spider a site with wget through Ratproxy, don't try. It's not going to work properly. If you want to spider a site with a proxy, I would try Burp, or just do it the old-fashioned way, run Ratproxy and check your website properly.
Yeah, I mean, look at your interception proxy too. If you're a pen tester, pen testers are gonna, if they run Ratproxy, they're going to do it probably during mapping, because they're going to look at the site and browse through it, click links,
right.
see if they find anything interesting.
Yep.
They're not gonna do any attacking at first, and then they'll create the report with Ratproxy and look and see if it found anything that they missed.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Ratproxy kind of straddles the idea between manual and automated testing, because you can run this and it's not going to do anything for you unless you're actually, doing some manual testing involved, in line, but you're going to get a report at the same time you're doing it. So you're actually kind of doing automated and manual testing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is another tool in the toolkit right here. We just thought... we'd let you guys know about it and maybe implement it in your organization.
Yep. Yeah, and especially if you're a security person who maybe helps out the organization with testing of certain applications, this could be a tool that you could use to speed up the process. Or maybe it will find things that an automated scan won't find.
Right. So. Okay, cool. Ratproxy.
All right. Yeah. So, you also told me that there's a little something you wanted to talk about.
Sure. I can do that. Where do I?
That was one of the worst segues I've ever seen. I've ever done. But we'll make it work somehow.
Was that a first take? Do you need a second take?
No, I don't need a second take. We don't do second takes. So you got a little bit of rant. You got a little something to get off your chest?
I don't know if it was a rant, but one day I went to lunch with a colleague of mine, and at the end, the guy that worked at the place was like, how was it? And most people would say, "Oh, it was good," but my colleague turned to face the guy and he said, looked him in the eye, "That was excellent, great job." And I thought, wow, we should do more of that as human beings, because I bet you it made that guy's day, because he was expecting, hey, yeah, it was good, but he got much more, right? And I think we need to do a lot more of that in our organizations as well, because you go up to, you find a vulnerability, right, in your application, and we study security, we think security, we breathe security, we do it all day, right, every day, and it's easy to justify in our mind going to a developer or a sysadmin and say, what were you thinking? And it's easy for us to fall into the trap, being in the business that we're in, of just becoming an ass at work. I think
you're worried about the holier than thou attitude,
Yeah, I mean, we sit there and we know these guys shouldn't code exploitable code and put all these holes in the firewall and all these things, when and security people come off as being, like you said, the holier than thou, like I know better than you and you shouldn't do this, you should know better, right? Sure. And thinking back to our podcast on SQL Map, I tested one of the applications that I built like years before. Happened to not have any vulnerabilities, but I thought, as far as SQL injection, I thought, back then I wasn't really thinking security. It wasn't instilled in my mind. Well, whose fault was that? Was it my fault? I don't know. Maybe it was the security guy's fault for not teaching it. Maybe it was the company's fault for not emphasizing it. So, if you go to a sysadmin and shake them and say, why did you do this? Well, maybe it was really your fault because you weren't training him. You weren't instilling security into, what he did every day. You weren't doing everything you could. Maybe you should look in the mirror before you go tell somebody, you suck. You did this the wrong way, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you
Sure.
told him 2-3 times and you had training, great. Maybe it was his fault, but it's so easy for people in the security field to fall into that trap of being the ass at work that nobody wants to talk to and everybody wants to avoid.
See, I'm not the guy you went to lunch with, but at times I feel like the guy that's shaking the developer and saying, what the f*** are you doing? I'm going to have to edit that out. What are you doing?
No second takes?
I'm going to second take that one because, I got to keep our, got 13-year-olds listening to the podcast. No, okay. So I've got a kind of counterpoint to that. It is not easy to set up a culture of security or a culture of having security in mind. The coding thing is kind of a universal bit, though. I mean, they don't learn coding in college. And then, it's slowly getting better. I know Marianne Davidson.
You mean secure coding?
They learn coding, but they don't learn coding practices that are proper. I mean, it could be something as simple as putting it in the proper, format. I mean, white space, indentations, making sure the code is readable so that it doesn't look like some obfuscated mess like, the Perl code contests that they have where you're...
Yeah, but you have to understand where they're coming from. To them, coding the right way is coding without bugs. Doesn't matter what it looks like. You have to put yourself in their shoes, right?
Do shops, do organizations have like, a board that says, how many days since the last coding bug? I don't think they do. I mean, I've seen it in more than one organization where it's like, oh, there was a bug. Oh, okay, well, we'll fix it. They don't even figure out who did it to get a root cause of going, okay, that guy maybe needs to have a refresher on uninitialized variables or, setting null values on things or, there's nothing in there, because I think it's they don't want to point fingers at other folks because they know that it could have just as easily been them.
Yeah.
Why get on to a guy when I probably would have made that exact same mistake myself, so I will be a hypocrite. When in fact they should be going, you know what, that guy needs some training, and you know what, I need to sit my ass down and get some training as well on uninitialized variables or, setting things according to null or, setting, all kind. I don't know.
My point is, you can accomplish that and be a nice person as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you don't need to go in and shake people. When you're placing blame, make sure that you're doing it in private. One of the things I learned in the Navy was you praise in public, berate in private, or punish in private or whatever, because you don't want everybody getting down on that guy or that guy feeling bad because he's lost face in front of his friends or his coworkers because he may have made a simple mistake. But I think there needs to be some remediation in organizations that have a developer heavy or developer centric culture or engineering, where either they get regular training, they go to regular training, or where they have the training in house, or if there's been a bug in an application that they have and you find out that this guy committed it, like the OpenSSL stuff. I hate to bring up Heartbleed because it's not old, but it's not new either. The guy put it in on New Year's Eve night, like 7 years ago. What the hell's he doing coding and doing his own commits at 7, on New Year's Eve night? He doesn't need to be making his own commits. I'm on a tangent here. I need to
I assume it was peer reviewed.
No, it was not.
It was not peer reviewed.
No, he had committed. Oh no, it was peer reviewed, but it was so innocuous that nobody noticed.
Sure, and people make mistakes.
Okay, what is that guy doing to make sure that he doesn't cause that mistake again?
I don't know.
See,
is that public?
I don't think it is. But that's what organizations should be doing. Okay, that guy made a heartbleed level mistake.
Sure.
That is like, wow, you know. If there's an organization that has a mistake like that, where there's web vulnerabilities, and you find out it's the same guy making the same web vulnerability mistakes, or, you know, he's made a series of these things, or, you know, there should be some remediation or something where he gets some kind of improvement plan, or he or she, where, you know, they get some training and, you know, find out where that person is deficient on, and if that guy's deficient on it, then everybody in the organization is probably deficient on it, and everybody needs to have some brown bag lunch sessions on how to make things better. Get the director of engineering out there to you know, buy off on a little bit of training or something.
Yeah. I just think it should be handled case by case. I mean, maybe it was some mistake that was 1 in a million shot, and it just happened to be there. I don't know. Maybe it should have been peer reviewed better. It's kind of like the Titanic. Why did the Titanic sink? Well,
there were a lot of things wrong there.
Well, they root caused it down to the type of rivets that they used to build the thing.
Yeah, there was an iron ore shortage, and they used a less
tangent.
It had less
tangent.
No, not tangent, not tangent. This is history, baby. This is awesome. So it was an iron ore shortage, and they used a different alloy than, you know, what they should have been using, and in cold water it became brittle. And, you know, not saying that it would have gone down with proper rivets, but you know, it made it more likely that it was going to go down if it got hit in such a manner. So, you know, there's a lot of root causes there. I'm a big fan of training. I think people should get training, or should want to get training. If they're just happy punching a clock on 40 hours a day, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
And maybe part of that 40 hours a day should be some training.
You know, the business should emphasize training, security training. You know,
sure.
Should see where their development team lies in the aspect of security. I mean, SANS offers a test that you can test your developer to see how well or where they fall in secure coding.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, do they code securely? And I'm sure it grades them on a scale of 1 to 100. And if that person scores low, well, then you know, hey, they need further training on that. I'm sure that it's a really comprehensive test. It probably lasts about 4 hours, something like that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to
give that out to you know, or take that myself, you know, not having a programming background, to see how poorly I would do. But yeah, I just you know, so you say it's a case by case basis, but what should you do for that case? So that should that person have to go to training, or should he have to, you know, find some CBTs, or are you going to reward him by taking a $5,000 course?
I don't know the guy. I mean, it all depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it was 7 years ago. I mean,
true.
Maybe all of his code should be double checked. You know,
well,
checked.
I know OpenSSL is definitely starting a code audit. I mean, after they basically helped start Boring and Libre SSLs, which are forks of OpenSSL. Open is definitely doing a code audit of some kind. So what you're saying is, don't be a D. Mm-hmm. Don't be a D when you're talking to people, kind of.
Yeah, because you don't know where they're coming from, or at least you probably don't.
Yeah. Well, you know, to be fair, that guy who did the Heartbleed bit, he definitely was the goat of the internet for a while. There were a lot of people very unhappy with him on the internet.
Yeah. So, it caused a lot of people a lot of work, but I mean, did he actually get paid for that?
I don't know if he was an actual paid volunteer. They did have paid volunteers, but I don't think he was one of them. So, yeah, he wasn't getting paid. It was a hobby. So, you know.
He thought he was doing good, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Or he could have been paid to put the bug in.
Easy conspiracy theory guy.
But anyway, so that's my thing. Don't.
See, I thought you were going to rant. I totally forgot. You told me a little bit about it, but you didn't tell me everything. So I thought it was going to be more ranty. I was expecting to put my dukes up and start fighting or something, But okay. Well, so wow, that was quite effective. So Ratproxy good. Ratproxy is good for testing if you're a QA dude, or if you want to help your QA folks, head off security issues ahead of time.
Yeah, try it out. Now, it's not
yep.
for QA. It's to get QA to use it as they're mapping or testing the site, and then you get the report. You look at it. Yeah. You verify everything that Ratproxy says.
Yep. So Ratproxy good.
Yep.
Runs on Linux, Mac, and will run on Windows. And I'll post the link in our show notes to the Secure Ideas blog post. I'm sure Mr. Kevin will like the bump in traffic. And finally, don't be a D. And try to be nice to people. Don't have a holier-than-thou attitude when you're a security guy.
Yep.
Because obviously there's going to be somebody out there who knows more than you. So
always.
That's right. Okay, so that was it for this week. Mr. Boettcher and I can be found on Twitter at Brian Brake, at Boettcher Pwned. That's BOETTCH, and then Pwned, PWNED. There you go. So we've got a Facebook fan page, facebook.com/Breaking Down Security. And, tell your friends. We had an overwhelming response last month to our videos and audio. It just totally blew us away, and we're very appreciative of that. So if you find value in what we're doing here, be sure to tell your friends, tell your boss, tell your management. We're always looking for jobs. So, we love our job, but, we're always looking for something better. So that was it for this week. And Mr. Boettcher, you have yourself a great rest of the week.
All right. We'll see you all next time.
That was it for Breaking Down Security.
Bye-bye.